source tools for both of these network analysis protocols are really geared for, well, how's my peering doing versus my transit, or is my traffic going to Europe, or is it going to the US, that sort of thing. And it's not very granular at the level that we wanted to get it at. So our solution is basically taking all the access logs from those 40 or 50 servers that you saw and piping them to a bunch of log servers. This is with syslog-ng, multicast. Then we pump it into a database. Prior to going into the database, we had some additional data like GeoIP, how fast they download the data, that's an Apache module, and their ASN information, like what was their origin ASN and the next hop ASN, like what ISP that we used to serve them. We then use this data along with customer support emails that say, hey, I'm only getting 10 kilobits and I've got a cable modem, or I've got DSL, that sort of thing, and group it together. And about every 2 weeks we have a meeting and we look, okay, what can we do to adjust our network to get better experience for the end user? And so by gathering all this data, we can adjust our router configuration and essentially set local pref and say, well, even though ISP X, the AS path is shorter, they may have some peering or some saturation or some politics in the way. We use ISP B, they may be 3 additional AS paths longer, but the route seems to be better. That's what our customers are experiencing. Our internal goal is to have at least 200 kilobits or faster for customers. This is extremely difficult domestically in the US. Essentially, we're going back to Ma Bell, where there's one large phone company and one large cable company. The cable company in particular doesn't have a single ASN. They've got about 40 ASNs. They're building this thing called a backbone in 2007. So they're really playing catch up to building a large network, and so it's very difficult. A lot of the ISPs in the US only have access to half their network, and so we're trying to find a way, well, the other half of the network, how do we improve speeds for the customers? And so we use this data to, again, adjust the configuration on our router. It's very tricky also to detect things like download managers. A lot of people will download a download manager and immediately set it to 300 simultaneous connections at 10 kilobyte chunks, and that's just really not efficient when you're downloading video. Again, throwing kind of random geek bits, we process approximately about 90 to about 100 video requests a second. The other thing to note is about 90% of our users actually download the video. So we, in the industry, would have what's called archivers. These are essentially people that don't get off on the porn, but they get off on filling up their hard drives. We don't have typical streamers. A little bit different than the YouTube model. Speed test. So here's some of the data that we can get out of it. So since we record all the downloads, we can see, well, the UK on average is getting 405 kilobits, and the Netherlands is getting 243. I think that number is probably inverted, but we can do these little nice, pretty RD tool graphs and ask some pretty interesting questions that we can get out that are useful for both business case questions and technical questions. So, are we having some I/O bottleneck on a particular server that's being slowed or a particular region? Or is there some sort of content that's more popular in Europe that we need to maybe put the content in Europe, that sort of thing. So it really answers a lot of neat questions that we have. Here's an example of the top 10 downloads between Germany, Netherlands, and America. Now, the reason that I talked about the marketing in the beginning, saying that we had 5 DVDs a day, is to note that there's only, one DVD in common that everyone liked. And this is sort of an order of popularity. So clearly there are different tastes between the 3 markets represented here. And this was only for a day, but that's pretty much the trend that we see. There's usually only one DVD that's popular worldwide. On the security side, obviously there's some security folks at this conference. Generally the problem with adult sites is the typical ones. Cross-site scripting, people with HD passwords that are, bad permissions, world readable, that sort of thing. Biggest problem that we have is that the third parties that we integrate with are not like a VeriSign or a Thought. They're essentially a company like CCBill or Paycom that's not used to dealing with things like APIs. One of these companies actually connects to a raw SQL port. They expect you to have a MySQL server just out on the net that they can connect to directly. And that's their form of integrating with you. Pretty scary stuff. As I mentioned, the download managers are a real big problem. We don't mind if you have a 1 gigabit connection or a modem, as long as you only open up a few connections at a time that are established. And most folks don't get that just pumping up the download manager doesn't make things faster. So we've had to develop a lot of custom Apache modules and some pretty fancy load balancer rules to deal with that problem. The other thing is source IPs. This is something that we hold close to heart. We appreciate technologies like Tor and proxies and the benefits that they can have for folks. The tricky part is, well, how do we make sure that if there's not fraud that's being issued in these situations? And so it gets a little bit tricky. We have other ways of kind of limiting that sort of thing. The other problem is that users that generally watch this content are not the most clueful folks. They usually have a lot of malware on their machine. And this is very frustrating, where they may be able to download videos, but they can't navigate our site because the URL is different and they've got some sort of virus or malware. Really frustrating there. I think this is some of the funny parts of the presentation is kind of the email that I get pretty much every single day. In this case, our co-location company that we write a check to for about $20,000 every month was asking for about a half a dozen free accounts. Our average price is $10 a month, so they're being a little bit cheap. This is a subversion commit message. Since we add 5 DVDs a day and we're essentially kind of the Walmart of porn, we want to have kind of a variety of content out there. In this case, customers were complaining that we had too much transsexual content, so we adjusted the percentage of how much content was being available to them. This is one of my favorites here. This is a husband and her wife that really likes the site, and she's also my Dell account rep. These are kind of the meat and potatoes here. This is the best of the unsubscribes here. Pretty good ones here. Busted because my wife was masturbating to the site. I have a girlfriend that jerked me off now. I'm Mothers Against Pornos. My life is now with Christ. Hold your applause. It gets much, much better. Your service is great, but I broke up with my boyfriend. I don't really want to pay for his porn anymore. I'm getting married, but hopefully my wife will take care of me. These are all legitimate, by the way. I didn't make this up. I have to cancel as I've been masturbating daily watching these movies. My cock is sore now, and the day I feel horny too often in the office, I have to go to the toilet to jack off when I see a colleague with big butts like those in Video Box. I'm simply masturbating and too horny too often. Just too much. Because I jacked my meat so hard it left blisters on me, so my mom made me cancel the account because of the hospital bill. She also found out that my nut rags, after she found out that I was a member, she searched my room and also found my dildo with the crap stains all over it, and she was mad at the stains of the floor and the smell. She then searched everything in the house and found my goatee collection buried under the deck, and I'm very sorry to cancel, and trust me, my balls have never been bluer than they are now. I gotta go. I hear Mom coming. It's my favorite. I might be going to jail. That's a good one. So, one thing I want to show here, if this is going to work, let's see if this works. Sorry here. So one of the things that I mentioned was the downloads that we keep track of. And what we have here, assuming this is going to work, is a quasi real-time display of DVD downloads that are occurring on the site. The network's been a little bit flaky here, so it may not work. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So the real nice thing about this is there's a couple interesting features here. You can obviously click and then see the name of the title. This is Super Squirt number 2. Everything that gets kind of interesting is rolling it over and seeing, okay, well, what is Europe downloading? One of the things I didn't mention is that we actually have 2 peaks in our download. So we have a US peak that's mostly East Coast focused time. The European peak is actually in the morning. So it appears that Europeans like their porn in the morning, where Americans like it in the evening. So we don't see too many there. This is also about 2% of our downloads right now. If I listed everything, it would cover the whole screen. But what's interesting here is that we'll sometimes see content in places like Dubai and Egypt and China, and areas where we clearly should be blocked, but maybe someone at the right space is able to get access. For those of you that are familiar with the US, one of the things that's kind of interesting is looking at the different demographics that exist within the US. In the Midwest, essentially the Bible Belt, the more kind of conservative area in the US, is where some of our particular content is a lot more popular. So you can put layers on this, and hopefully this can. So one of the things that we've noticed with this, because our billing is outsourced and we don't generally know where the customer is going crazy. Generally, we don't know where the customer exactly lives. This is just geo-IP data. One of the things that we notice is down kind of in the Bible Belt, or essentially the Midwest, where it's mostly conservative. This actually happens to be our most popular area for gay content, which is really interesting for some reason. I don't know. So that's all I have. Any questions? And I have some other promotional items that I won't throw out, but as I mentioned, we do have a gay site, and so we have some jock straps here. Being kind of a dumb, naive American that's straight, I kind of said, oh, this is kind of interesting. Why isn't the logo in the front? Oh, it's in the back. Interesting. Okay, so if anyone's interested in these, just come up. I don't want to throw them out or anything like that. Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you. The YouTube guy presented at Nanog last year, stating that they were at 20 gigs per second back then. Now you said 200. So how's your growth when it comes to traffic?
Don't really want to comment. I essentially provided that by saying how many number of 10 gigabit interfaces that we have. That's all I can say. So. It doesn't double as fast as kind of the flash mob sites. We see growth consistently every month. The growth continues to go up, but it doesn't double every month. Any other questions?
Yes. Hello. I'm wondering, and this is a legit question, are you hiring? Please, pretty please.
I wish. It's a pretty small operation. One of the larger part of the organization is something called content operations. Now, the reason that I showed the screenshot, clearly I'm a technical guy, not a marketing guy, but if you remember from the screenshot, not the film strip interface, but just kind of the navigating a particular DVD, you see 6 thumbnails, essentially kind of the money shots or the best shots of a chapter. Someone picks those out by hand. So content operations is a group that we're always looking for, because essentially you're looking at hundreds of DVDs every single day. The other problem is that they also do QA. So with QA, they actually listen and watch the movie the first 4 or 5 seconds to make sure the audio syncs up, and then scroll to the back and make sure the audio is okay in the back at the end of the movie. Sounds like a lot of fun, but most people only last about 2.5 weeks, and they're like, oh my god, after that. So, any other questions?
Yeah, one question. You have hard facts or some estimates on how much internet traffic is actual porn? Like 80%, 70, or less?
I wish. That'd be great. No, that's clearly not the case. One of the things I mentioned in the beginning is it's really frustrating that there's really no third parties to validate how big the industry is, both on a technical scale or on a business side. And I don't personally think it's that much. But I do think some of the larger organizations like ISPs and content distribution networks and storage providers are typically their best customers or adult customers. They're not waiting for VC money or to cash out, that sort of thing. So I think we're a pretty decent percentage of the internet, but not as much as we used to be back in the day. There's still things like Usenet and things like that are popular, but Web 2.0, YouTube is a lot more popular. You don't have to pay. It's free, and you don't care about the quality or how fast it downloads, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's nearly that big. It'd be great though if it was.
I have a technical question regarding the Apache modules you coded yourself. Did you release them on the GPL? So is the source code available? For example, for logging the download speed and the access log and these things.
Sure. So there's 2 modules that we use. There's 3. One Apache module is called Mod Video Box, and that's what chops up the video files so that you can only download what you're interested in. So we haven't released that. The modules that we use within the bandwidth database is ModLog.io and ModLog First Byte. ModLog First Byte you can get from Google, and modlog.io is built into Apache too. So they're already out there. And they're, again, what we take from Apache is just take the syslog to a central box. So really all the magic secret sauce is once the data is out of Apache on a log host.